Hey everybody, welcome in for another South Harmon team review here for 2024. We're going to be looking at the New England Patriots this time. So, obviously, new head coach Gerard Mayo and offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt. The Bill Belichick era has finally ended in New England, so we have a new coach, new offensive coordinator. Key players who left, so Devontae Parker left. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles. Mike Gesicki, the tight end, went to the Bengals. Tackle Trent Brown. He also went to the Bengals as well. And obviously, you got to throw Bill Belichick in there as a key player who left, who has been running this organization since, the late '90s. So obviously, with Belichick there, not there anymore, it's going to be a different look here for the Patriots. Targets and vacated air yards. So 174 targets are missing, and 1,022 air yards will be missing from the Patriots as well. Koopa, go ahead and talk about the quarterbacks, especially their new quarterback, their number 3 overall pick.
Yeah, so number three overall, the Patriots picked up Drake Maye. So Drake Maye is going to be the quarterback of the future here in New England. So just to talk about him a little bit, Dane Brugler talks about overall Maye needs to cut down on the reckless decisions, but he's a well put together passer with the on the field command, athletic instincts, and arm talent to create solutions for the problems that NFL defenses present. With his physical gifts and smarts, he is cut from the same cloth as Justin Herbert and has a similar ceiling as an NFL player. He led North Carolina in rushing in 2022 and understands when to slide and when to use his toughness to finish runs. He had 56 rushes of 10 plus yards the last two seasons in college, and he was second most in the FBS, but only behind LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. He was 269 for 425, which gave him a 63.3% completion rate. He threw for 3,608 yards and 24 touchdowns with only 9 interceptions, and that gave him a 90.8 PFF grade, an 89.8 passing grade, a 97.1 deep ball grade, and overall, he was a really, really good quarterback for North Carolina in college. The only rough part is we'll talk about it a little later. New England's maybe not the best landing spot for a quarterback in terms of the weapons that he has to throw to, but Drake Maye is one of those guys that if he does put it together, maybe he becomes that CJ Stroud type where last year we were all saying, hey, CJ Stroud, he does not have the weapons that he needs in Houston. Maybe a similar thing might happen here in New England with Drake Maye. If that happens, look out because he's going to be really good, both in terms of for the NFL and then also for fantasy because he does have that rushing upside to him. The backups behind Drake Maye are Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi. There's also Joe Milton, who they drafted in the 6th round. So Jacoby Brissett, some people have been talking about him potentially starting the season over Drake Maye. I don't think you draft a quarterback third overall and not have him starting week one, especially when your backup is Jacoby Brissett. So I personally think that Drake Maye is just going to be starting week one. Jacoby Brissett's the guy on the sideline holding the clipboard. And then one of either Bailey Zappi or Joe Milton is the third quarterback dressed. I'm not completely confident that Bailey Zappi is going to be that third quarterback if Joe Milton looks good in camp. We've already seen Bailey Zappi on the field. He was not inspiring. And so if Joe Milton looks like he could be decent, I could see them wanting to keep Milton over keeping Zappi. Especially new regime, new head coach, everything like that. They don't have any reason to be like, hey, we love Bailey Zappi and we want to hold on to him.
Yeah, with Drake May, the one thing that you mentioned, man, 56 rushes of 10 plus yards the last two seasons, second most in the FBS behind only Jaden Daniels, which is incredible to think about all the quarterbacks in college football. And here's Drake May being the second in that category. So pretty good there, and that just shows you the rushing ability that Drake May is going to have. I would kind of maybe comp him to a little bit to maybe like Daniel Jones running style. And we know Daniel Jones can run for 400, 500 rushing yards in a season. So I think Drake May can kind of be similar this year if he's asked to be the starter. I don't know if he's going to be the starter. I could see maybe Brissett maybe the first couple weeks and then May goes in there. But we'll see how things progress and if May picks up the offense and all that. I agree with you too. Zappy and Milton is really going to be a competition there to be the third quarterback. They only kept one quarterback last year on their initial 53. I think that's was just Bill Belichick shenanigans. So I think Drake May and Brissett are definitely locks. The third quarterback, we'll see. I would think they would keep one of these guys, but you never know with New England. Running backs, though, let's go on to them. So Rhamondre Stevenson still there, coming off an injury that ended his season, but he had a PFF grade of 71.3, which was 31st of 59. They brought in an Antonio Gibson from the Commanders, free agent signing, 3 years at $11.25 million. Kevin Harris, a 2022 sixth-round pick, is still there. JaMychal Hasty, Keyshawn Vaughn, former Bucks running back, and Deshaun Fenwick, a 2024 UDFA that they brought in. They only kept 2 running backs last year on their initial 53. So I'm thinking Rhamondre Stevenson and Gibson are definitely locks. I would probably think they keep a third. And that's probably going to be literally a 4-way battle here between those last guys. What are you seeing on the running backs, Koopa?
I see a similar thing. Rhamondre Stevenson, he's going to be the number one running back there. Antonio Gibson, probably more the spell back. And then whoever the third guy is, I mean, if it was Belichick, I would say Kevin Harris. But because Belichick's gone, there is no loyalty to any of these guys from the new regime. And so you could see literally anybody else being that third running back. I would think that you keep a third running back. Maybe if you decide to do some initial 53-man roster shenanigans, you only do 2. But none of the other 4 guys behind Stevenson and Gibson are really that inspiring to me in terms of, yeah, this is definitely a guy who should be on the roster.
Right. All right, on to the wide receivers now. So Kendrick Bourne should be the number 1 this year. He's coming off of a ACL tear, so hopefully he gets back and healthy here. PFF grade of 67.2, 66 of 128 last year on that grade. They brought in Ja'Lynn Polk really early in the second round this year from Washington. Demario Douglas, probably one of the best 6th-round picks that we've seen for the Patriots in quite a while. He had a PFF grade of 74.4, which was 36 of 128 last year. So big hit there for the Patriots. KJ Osborne they brought in from the Vikings, 1 year, $4 million deal. He just struggled last year. 53.9 was his PFF grade, which was 111th of 128 last year. Javon Baker, another wide receiver that a lot of people liked. Out of the 4th round this year. Juju Smith-Schuster still there. His PFF grade was 57, which was 100th out of 128 wide receivers last year. Going to be hard to cut him, I think, with the contract. Jalen Reagor, PFF grade of 51.4, which is 121st out of 128. Kayshon Boutte, 2023 6th-round pick. He's had some legal issues with gambling and all that, so we'll see what happens there with him. Kawan Baker, Tyquan Thornton is still there, a 2022 2nd-round pick who just really hasn't stayed healthy and been able to contribute, and TJ Luther as well. They kept 7 on their initial 53 roster last year, so I'm kind of thinking Bourne, Polk, Demario Douglas, KJ Osborne, Javon Baker, Juju, those guys will be locked in. And I think Jalen Reagor probably makes the team just because of his return ability. What do you think about the wide receivers here?
Yeah, I agree with just about everything in terms of this wide receiver room is a mess. There's a lot of guys who might be good or might be okay, but there's a lot of mites that are going to be thrown around. He could be the potential's there. You need to see some of these guys actually put it together. I will say that Jalen Reagor, he ended up getting some run as the kick return guy towards the end of the season. Antonio Gibson also was handle a lot of kick returns for Washington last year. He might beat Jalen Reagor out for that kick return role. And if he does, Jalen Reagor might end up missing the 53 man as a result.
Yeah, and then Tyquan Thornton too. I mean, they could maybe still keep him as well. So definitely has some interesting guys this year. And like you said, this was a wide receiver core that was pretty terrible last year. They have at least upgraded on that. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They brought in 2 really good rookies. Douglas last year they hit on. They brought in KJ Osborne, who's a solid vet. And Kendrick Bourne I really liked last year as well. So liking at least the improvements that they did make with the draft capital that they did have. Some highlights on Ja'Lynn Polk. So overall, Polk must continue developing as a route runner, but he is a natural athlete addressing the football with 3-level instincts and pro-level toughness, a potential NFL starter. His game is reminiscent of Josh Palmer when he was coming out of Tennessee, according to Dane Brugler. He had 69 catches, 108 targets, 1,159 yards, 16 8 yards per catch last year on 9 touchdowns. 540 pass snaps, 222 came in the slot, and 317 out wide. So he can play inside and out. PFF grade is 75. He had a 74.3 man coverage grade. He had 4 drops, 5.2 yards after catch, which was not very good. 13.8 ADOT, which is average. 14 deep catches for 567 yards, and 32 catches from the slot for 453 yards. I mean, he has good, reliable hands. He's a very good and willing blocker, so that's going to keep him on the field at all times with his blocking ability. Very good at contested catches. He ran a limited route tree, so he'll need to expand that at the NFL level. And then real quickly on Javon Baker. So overall, Baker is a loose, striding athlete with ball tracking skills. Although his tape is full of inefficiencies and question marks that didn't allow him to consistently showcase his talent. He projects as a developmental Z receiver with starting upside. He was a guy who started his career at Alabama, so obviously a high recruit if you go to Alabama, and traveled to UCF last year for his last year. 52 catches on 84 targets, 1,139 yards, 21.9 per catch, which was awesome, 7 touchdowns, 377 pass snaps, 102 were in the slot, and 275 were out wide. PFF grade of 82.9. He was a 78.5 versus man coverage, so pretty decent. He had 6 drops, so he's going to need to improve on those drops, not drop so many. 7.2 was his yards after catch, was tied for 57th in the nation. 17.1 ADOT, so tied for 18th in the nation. So, hey, if Drake Maye is really good on the deep balls like we talked about earlier, if him and Baker can hook up, yeah, that's going to be really big for Baker. So I think Baker's got a shot here to at least be the number 3 on this team. He had 15 deep catches, caught 574 yards on those, 14 slot catches for 367 yards in the slot. He's a very good contested catch guy. He only has 4.54 40-yard speed, so he will have to be good at contested catches. He's not going to have the elite speed to separate from his man at the NFL level. Just got to have to work on the drops and inconsistencies from them. Any more thoughts on the wide receivers there, Koopa, or any of these rookies?
The thing to look out for is all the wide receivers. They're currently ranked wide receiver 69, 76, and 82 for Douglas, Polk, and Baker, respectively. Obviously, somebody needs to be the primary receiver, and assuming that that actually happens, that guy sticks around, and there isn't any like wide receiver rotation shenanigans or something like that, somebody's going to be a value. It's just a matter of picking the right guy. So if you are biased towards one of those 3 guys and thinks, hey, this is going to be the top guy Drake May is going to like, take your shot because there's a lot of upside to be gained there.
Yeah, even though I like Kendrick Bourne a lot, he is coming off an ACL. So if you can get one of those young guys, Demario Douglas or Polk, for cheap, that might be the better play, honestly. And then lastly, the tight end. So Hunter Henry, they just brought him back. I think he's going to be a really, really good value this year and a favorite target for Drake May, especially with Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator. Obviously, coming from the Brown system and the way that they use tight ends, I think Hunter Henry is in for a big year. So he could be one of those guys we look up at the end of the year, and he's tight end 11 on the year, and you probably got him at like tight end 25, tight end 30 prices. So Hunter Henry is definitely somebody I would target this year. Austin Hooper, they also brought in free agent signing. He was with Van Pelt in Cleveland, so obviously knows the system. Mitchell Wilcox, who they brought in from the Bengals, just kind of like a guy, basically. Jaheim Bell, who they drafted in the 7th round this year. He was a Debbie Darling there for a while. He could play running back. He could play tight end. He's kind of like a jack of all trades type player, kind of like Jalen Samuels when he came out with the Steelers a couple years ago. LaMichael Petway they also have, and Jacob Warren, a 2024 UDFA they brought out. Kept two on the initial 53-man roster last year. I think Henry and Hooper are probably locks. That third tight end, if they do keep a third one, it's going to be between Wilcox and Bell. And even then, I'm not sure if they would keep three of tight ends. They might just stick with two.
Yeah,
Any tight end thoughts?
Hunter Henry is one of those guys that I totally agree. He could be somebody we look up at the end of the year. He's back end tight end one. Currently he's going off the board as tight end 19 in terms of expert consensus rankings. And he's somebody that you look at who the wide receivers are that he's competing with, and then you also look at Drake Maye in college. He threw a lot to Bryson Nesbitt, and Nesbitt was one of the more productive college tight ends. And so maybe Drake Maye has a propensity to utilize the tight end a little bit more than other quarterbacks. That could end up being a good thing for Hunter Henry as well.
And then finally, looking at their offensive line, they ranked 20th last year, so just about average. They had a lot of injuries that shook up the offensive line last year from multiple positions, prevented that offensive unit from playing to their full potential. Rookie guard City So, he might have shown the most improvement as the season went on. He earned a 28.7 overall grade in week one, but after that, he graded out at 71.7 between week 6 and the end of the season, which is the top mark among all rookie offensive linemen over that stretch. So he really improved from week 6 on last year. So looking at the offensive line this year, they lost their left tackle, which was Trent Brown. He went to the Bengals. So in the third round, they took Caden Wallace. So some highlights about Wallace. Overall, Wallace needs to continue developing his consistency, but he is a smooth athlete with a wide base, punch-ready hands, and improved physicality to finish. It wouldn't be a surprise to see him starting as an NFL rookie at right tackle or potentially inside at guard. But they have him penciled in as the left tackle here right now for the Patriots. Could they sign somebody that's still lingering out there? Very positively they could. We'll see what happens there right now. The backup was Verdarian Lowe. He was a 41.7 grade, 79th out of 81, so very not good last year. That's why Wallace is currently the starter. Left guard Cole Strange, 2022 first round pick. His PFF grade was a 64.6, 26th of 79 last year. And the backup is Nick Leverett. David Andrews is the starter at center. PFF grade is 71.2, 12th of 36 last year. And the backup is Jake Andrews, who is a 2023 fourth round pick from last year. City So, who I talked about at right guard, 2023 fourth round pick. His PFF grade ended up being 64.4 for 27th of 79th at guards. The backup is Layden Robinson, a 2024 fourth round pick. So Robinson plays with a rugged physical demeanor and the play strength to stay connected, but his middling mirror skills and protection while being will be targeted by NFL pass rushers. He has a chance to provide a depth for a power-based scheme in the NFL. So not like the greatest write-up from Brugler on him, but we'll see what he can do as a backup. And then right tackle was Mike Owenemu. PFF grade is 71.5, 29th out of 81 last year. And their backup is Chukwuka Okafor. PFF grade 60.4, 55th of 81 last year. So as long as this offensive line can stay healthy, I think they'll be all right. Probably average again, right where they finished at 20th. But if they get some injuries, the depth behind them is not very good. So hopefully that offensive line can stay together. And then kick returner and punt returner, Koopa.
Yeah, so kick returner, they ended the season last year with Jalen Reagor as their kick returner. I could see him getting beat out by Antonio Gibson. We just also simply because I could see Jalen Reagor getting beat out by a lot of the other wide receivers, and then
Yeah.
Antonio Gibson being good enough, and Jalen Reagor just missing the roster because of that. Punt returner, they swapped it back and forth last season between Miles Bryant and Demario Douglas. So look for either one of those two guys to be the punt returner for this coming season. And I would lean towards Demario Douglas and just kind of they're just going to run with him just and have it be more of that shifty offensive wide receiver kind of guy. But it just kind of all their kick returning and punt returning is kind of in flux, in my opinion. You come in with a new regime, maybe they want to see different guys. The Patriots are also one of those things where, hey, are you fine using who is potentially your number one wide receiver in Demario Douglas as your punt returner? You might not be comfortable doing that, and you might want somebody else back there. So you just kind of have to see where the Patriots decide to go. That's kind of the theme with a lot of the Patriots here. It's just there's a lot in flux. They're trying to change a lot of things. Whole new regime in the place, both in terms of head coach and GM, and how the whole team is organized. And so
Yeah.
the Patriots are definitely one of those wild cards that if you really like a player and there's probably a story to how they could be good. It's not bad guys to take shots on, especially because so many of them are so cheap in terms of relative value.
Yeah, hopefully for Drake May's sake, this team can stay healthy and they could make some improvements this year because last year was a absolute train wreck. So it can't be worse than last year. So let's hope the Patriots can get it together this year. Koopa, appreciate you joining with me on this one again. Until next week, we will see you guys with the AFC North.